What a deal! An old statement used invariably every day by both buyers and sellers alike throughout the flea market trade. Although everyone uses different words to express it, they all boil down to this one simple saying. To a seller, it means that he is willing to give you an outstanding deal, one which, in his opinion, you would be foolish to pass up. To a buyer, it means that she got a great deal on her purchase. This is the scope of this video, to show you as a seller how to present a tempting deal to your customer, and as a buyer, how to get the best deal from a seller. Some of these methods are common business sense. Others are closely guarded secrets used by the most successful flea market buyers and sellers. Each step-by-step method detailed in this video was developed only after many years of trial and error. Using these guidelines will save you money starting within your first hours of buying and selling. More importantly is the fact that these methods can be used anywhere around the country. Your savings and your smiles will continue on and on from market to market, and you too will be able to say, "What a deal!" More than 25,000 flea markets are held in this country each year, and they can be found in every state. Most are held outside in a field or parking lot. Many also have buildings or covered stalls, giving the dealer varying degrees of protection from the weather for an additional cost. Wearing comfortable shoes and clothing is a must. Dress according to the weather report. Bringing an extra pair of sneakers to help rest tired feet afterwards is a good idea. And don't skip a market because of the weather. Nice weather brings out most buyers, which increases your competition. But in cold weather, when business is slow, you will find that many of your best deals can be made. Carry boots for traversing mud, and a warm coat and gloves for those colder days. You might also find that sunglasses and a thermos of cool water or warm coffee will also make the day that much better. A flashlight is also a must for early morning markets. Some of the best buys could be missed if you wait for dawn. Another very important and useful tool is a pocket magnifier, and you will find hundreds of uses for one, from checking glass to examining paintings. An old-style grocery cart with 2 wheels is ideal to pull your purchases around. A canvas bag with shoulder straps, or at least carrying handles, is a fine item to start with. Your favorite antique reference books could also be fit snugly within them, coming in handy from time to time. Many buyers bring their children with them, but this is more for the leisure buyer. Serious buyers will leave them at home, allowing them to travel quickly and for longer periods of time. Last but not least, having change is handy. It will help avoid the frustration of being stalled in a dealer's booth while he or she attempts to make change. The easiest way is to read every antique trade paper you can get your hands on. Many of these are given away free at the larger markets. Keep an eye out for first-time markets. These will often have less buyers than large established shows, and therefore present you with less competition. Talking to dealers as you get to know them will give you valuable information about other markets, such as early buying opportunities, parking problems, and so forth. People purchase an item for an infinite number of reasons. If you're a seller, you buy an item for resale. Other buyers will purchase an item because they collect it. And still others will purchase an item because they may need it for a gift, or just like it, or maybe can't even live without it. Whatever a buyer's reason, you will have to compete with them in order to get that special buy. The best chance you have at finding a treasure, or sleeper, as they are commonly called, is to be there when the dealers are setting up. If you think you're going to waltz into a market in the afternoon and find a sleeper, forget it. The table life of a sleeper, in other words, the amount of time that passes between the moment the dealer pulls the item out of his vehicle and the time before it sells, in an active market, is around 2 to 5 minutes. This means that you have to be right there when the dealers are unloading. Setup time for many markets may start as early as 5 a.m. So once again, remember your flashlight. Longer running markets will usually have a much later setup time, and occasionally dealers are even let in the day before the advertised opening. It's a good idea to call the promoter of a new market that you're interested in shopping to find out both when the dealers are allowed in to set up and also when the public can get in to buy. Many of the markets have what is called an early buyer's fee, which costs between $10 to $70 per person. If this additional rate allows you to enter the field when the dealers are setting up, then by all means pay it. If you find only one small sleeper per market, it will more than cover the added expense, while greatly increasing the enjoyment of the hunt. Some markets allow no buyers on the field during setup. The more forceful buyer will get around this by begging or buying a ride into the field from a dealer who is setting up there. Occasionally, a buyer will even rent a space at the market just to be able to get in and buy during setup. When entering a market at opening time with other buyers, you will find that you must keep moving or too many of the other buyers will end up in front of you. It's also a good idea to zigzag through the market so you're not constantly behind another buyer who may be looking for the same types of items that you are. You could, for instance, cover all the even rows as you work your way to the rear of the market and all of the odd rows on your way back. You should usually skim through a market first, looking for items of your particular interest or anything unusual. Then go through a second or a third time more slowly, looking more carefully. Don't forget to search under tables and peek in the backs of the dealers' vehicles. You might find an item the other buyers haven't spotted yet. Sleepers constitute less than 1% of the sales at a market. The other 99% are normal transactions that occur throughout the day, so it's a good idea to set aside an entire day when deciding to thoroughly shop a large market. Many of your best transactions will often occur late in the day, particularly if the dealer is getting ready to pack up. By coming back late in the day, you may find that most dealers will give an extra good discount at this time, sometimes as much as 1/2 of the sticker price. Another important point is that if you do buy a sleeper off a dealer, it's best not to brag to him about it, or you will become super careful next time. This will decrease your chances of getting another sleeper off this dealer the next time you shop him. Still, all dealers should realize that nobody can know it all, and that they're bound to give away a sleeper now and then. Discounting, dickering, or bargaining, as some people call it, is the acceptable method of trade at a flea market. It is important to remember that you want to keep the dealer on friendly terms with you in order to get your best price. Some unwise buyers give the dealer a ridiculous low offer right off, succeeding only in irritating him and sometimes making the dealer downright angry. Easy to do when he's been up since 4 or 5 in the morning. The proper procedure when bargaining would be first to examine the item thoroughly, making sure that you will want it if the price is right. Never quote an offer unless you're ready to back it up. Greet the dealer, if you haven't already, and then say something like, "What can you take for this?" The dealer will normally quote you a lower price. Now you know that you can always buy this item at that price, providing you don't get the dealer angry with you. So you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by offering him a still lower price. Usually, the dealer will say no and refer back to the first discounted price. You can still possibly make one more offer without aggravating the dealer by saying something like, "Well, let's split the difference," and I'll take it. If the dealer has had a slow day, or if he bought the item cheaply, or if he's had it a while, and particularly if it's late in the day, he will normally accept your compromise offer, or at least quote you a little better price. Look the price tag over carefully. A dirty or faded tag means that the dealer has probably had the item for a while. Usually the best you can hope for in most deals is 10 to 25% off the dealer's sticker price. Late in the day or on the final day of a long market, especially if the dealer is beginning to pack up, you should expect 25% to 50% off the sticker price. A few dealers will still stay firm with their small discount, but most dealers will soften up on their price at pack-up time. Many dealers appreciate this last-minute offer and will do their darndest to deal with you. However, never offer a dealer less than half his sticker price. And don't wait too long before approaching a dealer on an item. Once an item is packed away in a dealer's vehicle, it is almost impossible to get it at a high discount, if you can get it at all. There are two other important points to remember. First, money talks. Try to deal with cash whenever possible, and let the dealer know that you're offering cash. Second, don't reach for your money or checkbook until all bargaining is finished. You don't want to appear too anxious. Using these methods will mean that by the end of your buying day, you will have saved an extra 10 to 20%, which adds up to money still in your pocket. It is important not to seem overly anxious about the item being bargained, but most important, never put the item down if you are debating whether or not to buy it and there is another customer near you. The unwritten rule is that whoever has it in their hands has first chance to buy it. There has been many arguments between customers and occasionally even fights when one buyer tried to buy an item another buyer was holding. When holding an item with other buyers around you, keep your hand over the price tag. Also, shield the item with your hands or body to prevent other possible buyers from getting a good look at it until you decide whether or not you want it. Lifting up one item from a table full of items has about the same effect to the other buyers as shining a spotlight on it. If you see another buyer examining an item that you're interested in, it's best to browse 10 or 15 feet away until she puts that item down and moves away from it. Then you slowly move over to that area, but don't pick up that item first if the other buyer is still in the area. Examine a few of the items around it before nonchalantly picking it up. If it is something you definitely want, and the other customer is still in the area and observing you, then immediately ask the dealer for his best price. The reason for all this is human nature. If the first customer is teetering on the brink of buying or not buying, and she sees another buyer go straight for that item and reach for it, she will many times panic and holler to the dealer, "I'll take it." Once you have the item in your hand and have asked the dealers a question about it, you are considered to be dealing with that item and should have first chance at buying it. If another buyer at this point tells the dealer that she'll take it, you should object and say that she put the item down. It's in your hands now and you're going to buy it. In all cases of dispute, the dealer who owns the item is the person who says which customer gets the item. Always bear in mind that you can't get every good buy, and there are plenty more buys out there. When searching through a market, you will come across dealers who specialize in only one type of item, such as paintings, toys, duck decoys, and so forth. It is usually a waste of time to search these booths for a sleeper in the type of item they specialize in. This is not to say that you can't get a good buy here. Keeping in mind that a sleeper has around 5 minutes of life before it is sold, you're better off shopping these types of dealers during your second or third sweep. Now, if this specialized dealer has something odd and out of place in his booth, maybe a toy dealer who has an oil painting or a jewelry dealer who has a piece of furniture, you definitely want to check out this item. Many specialized dealers are not very knowledgeable about items outside of their field. If you have any questions about a particular type of item that you collect or are looking for, these specialized dealers can be a gold mine of information. Most specialized dealers enjoy talking about the items in his or her field of specialization. Any dealer who is set up in the back of a large market or in an unlevel or muddy spot has a greater chance of being a dealer new to this market and should be shopped first. Checking license plates on the vehicles will find the out-of-state dealers, many of whom have their items priced for their home area and will be loaded with what amounts to bargains in your area. Another place to find new dealers is in the small town flea markets. This is the place where most new or aspiring dealers test their wings. Although even experienced dealers will slip up occasionally and offer a sleeper for sale, most sleepers come from new dealers. It doesn't take a brand new dealer long before he begins to recognize an item that could be worth a lot of money and begins to check on its value before putting it up for sale. In some of these small markets, because of few knowledgeable collectors, sleepers occasionally have an extended table life of around 1 hour. However, most dealers, old and new, will hold their better items back until they do a large show, which is one reason why so many more sleepers turn up at these larger shows. In addition, some new dealers will set up as late as 9 or 10 o'clock, which is the reason you occasionally hear of a sleeper being found late in the morning. But this is the exception and not the norm, and many large outdoor markets and all indoor markets have a time limit when all dealers have to be set up by. One unusual way to buy items at a very good price is to buy out a dealer's entire table load or entire inventory. This method works best late in the day and is almost impossible to do without cash. The first thing to check is whether the dealer has many items on his table or booth that you want. Next, check his prices to see if they are close to the prices that you would put on the items if they were yours. If, in your opinion, the dealer's items are way overpriced, there is no sense wasting your time, and it would be best to look elsewhere. Next, ask the dealer if he's interested in selling everything on the table, or his entire load, and see if he's receptive. If he's interested, it will take him several minutes to come up with a price. Meanwhile, you can use one of two methods to determine your ideal buying price. One way is to look over his merchandise and figure the amount that you can expect to sell his best items at. Now this should be at least 40% to 60% of his stock, figuring little or nothing for the rest of his inventory. Then use this figure as your ideal buying price. Your ideal buying price is the lowest possible price you could hope to get the merchandise for. This could be your counteroffer price, but be prepared to go 10 to 20% above it. Another method is to quickly run through his entire inventory and figure 1/2 of the price you can expect to sell each item at. Then make this figure your ideal buying price. The dealer, if he's truly interested in selling out, will quickly run through his inventory, figuring what he paid for each item, total this figure, add a small profit, and from that quote you his price. If his price seems unusually high, ask him which items he values at such a high price. There are always a few items in every dealer's inventory that he's overpaid for, and when you can determine these items, it's best to separate them out of the deal. Then both of you can recompute your figures. If you agree on a buying price, you will find this is a great way to accumulate large amounts of merchandise at a reasonable price. If you have access to an auction, you can dispose of the items you have no interest in, and often find that you have recovered a large portion of your cost. This will leave you with that much less invested in the remaining items. New reproductions abound at antique and collectible flea markets. Let the buyer beware, and anything goes are the passwords here. Close to half of the outdoor dealers will have at least one or two repos in their booths, with a few dealers' stock being 50% or more of these items. Most repros are fairly easy to spot because you'll see the same item handled by several different dealers at the same market. Repros are usually copies of the most wanted and eye-catching items, so the more desirable and valuable a certain item becomes, the better the chances are that someone will reproduce it. Repros that are fresh on the market are the hardest to tell, because one dealer will usually have them before the other dealers. It is best, on any item that you're not completely sure of, to ask the dealer how old it is and what he knows about it. Most dealers are honest and will tell you right out if the piece is not old. There are a small number of dealers who will swear up and down that the item is old, hoping that by the time you figure out it is new, the market will be over and the dealer will be long gone. To protect yourself when shopping, look around the dealer's booth to see if he has several repros mixed in with his antiques. If he does, then the odds are much greater that the item you're concerned with is a repro also. If there is someone on the market grounds that you could go to for advice, often the dealer will agree to hold the item for you for a short while if you leave a small deposit, say $5 or less on it. If you are advised that the item is a repro, you can try to get your deposit back, claiming the item was misrepresented. Even if the dealer refuses to return your deposit, you are out only a few dollars and not the $100 or so that the dealer was asking for the item. Also frequently confused and grouped with reproductions are new original items. Many of these are similar to old items, but are not direct copies of them, and therefore not technically reproductions. Many of these original items will become valuable and collectible someday. Reproductions might not. So remember, when a dealer tells you an item is an original, that does not necessarily tell you anything about the age. Original does not mean old, so pay accordingly. The best advice that can be given if an item is questionable is to pay for it with a check. This will give you 1 to 8 days to discover if the item was misrepresented, and allow you to stop payment on your check. Even if your check is made out to cash, you can still stop payment on it. Within a few days, the dealer will be calling you to find out why you stopped payment. At this time, you can then get shipping instructions to return the item. It's best to insist that the shipping charges be COD. If you discover shortly after purchasing an item that it has been misrepresented, you should try to return it to the dealer who sold it to you as soon as possible. Some dealers will take an item back, and if not, occasionally a show promoter or the threat of going to the promoter will help you get your money back. The longer you wait, the harder it is to get your money back. Another method to use when returning a cash purchase to a stubborn dealer is to agree to take back $5 or $10 less than what you paid for the item. This method is a last resort, but it often works. Otherwise, you're out of luck. Becoming a flea market dealer is one of the easiest and least expensive full or part-time businesses that you could ever start. Not only can you make a comfortable living as a flea market dealer, but you can do it anywhere in the country, from California to Florida to Maine. And more, no particular training or education is necessary to enter this fascinating and highly rewarding field. You just need to have a little common sense. Today, most flea markets are a mixture of 50 to 80% new imported items, 20 to 50% old or used items, and 2 to 5% produce. The exception to this is the antique and collectible flea market, which is composed mostly of old items. This is the type of market that this video covers. The size of the outside space varies greatly from market to market. Some are as small as 10 by 20, others as large as 20 by 30, and a few even larger. Most markets run from 1 to 3 days, but some run as long as a week, with a couple running over a month. Rent for these spaces can vary from $4 per space to $200 per space, with most being in the $10 to $45 range. The general antique market is the easiest to find and is usually best for the new dealer. Yet markets that run once a month or less frequently, compared to ones that run every week, are usually your best-selling markets with the largest number of buyers. Try to sell at the largest shows possible. The reason for this is simple. Large markets attract larger crowds of buyers. It takes the same amount of work to set up at a large market as it does a small one, but 10 to 100 times as many potential buyers will cross in front of your tables at a large market. The result is increased sales for the same amount of work, and only a small increase in your expenses. Some flea markets have different areas for different types of merchandise. This is a very important point when you're selling antiques, because you can cut down your sales potential drastically by being set up in the wrong area. If the market is called an antique and collectible market, where you set up becomes less important. Some areas have heavier foot traffic or larger concentration of buyers in every market. These better spots are at the entrance of the market, next to and across from snack bars, restrooms, corner spaces, and shady spots. Arrive early enough to get one of these spots, or reserve it in advance if possible. Because of their location, these spots are more likely to be checked over twice by the buyers. Most states require a flea market dealer to be registered as a merchant and have a resale number. It's easy and inexpensive to register as a dealer, and you can contact your county clerk for help. When you are finally registered and receive your taxed resale number, you will be given a booklet detailing the rules of your particular state. Read it carefully and follow what it says accordingly. Also, if you plan to sell in another state, check out what their rules and regulations might be. For example, some states require that out-of-state dealers intending to do business in their state have a resale or tax number, and sometimes even a license from their particular state. The promoter of the show that you are interested in doing should be able to advise you on such matters. It's better to be safe than sorry, so make sure that you're prepared accordingly. General antique and collectible flea markets will sell anything that is no longer being made, from salt shakers to jute boxes to Tiffany lamps. Another type of antique market occasionally found is called a specialty market. Examples include antique toy shows and railroad collectible shows. If you sell or collect one type of item, these markets can be very lucrative and enlightening, but they could be poor selling for a dealer with a general line. There are a number of different ways to go about choosing your show. First, look for promoter ads, either in your local paper or in an antique trade paper. A lot of advertising is a good sign. It shows that the promoter is sparing no expense to get buyers and sellers to his show. You can also check the trade papers for reviewers' articles on these markets. Yet another way, and probably the best way of all, is simply listening to what other dealers have to say. Many times they will tell you whether or not they did good at a particular market, and are more than happy to give you advice on one. One last simple way to choose a market is through trial and error. Just go out and give a show a try, following your best instincts on whether or not you will be successful there. But remember Doing a show only once is not a true indicator of its potential. Many important things can make a difference between success and failure, such things as the weather, competition, proper advertising, the right type of merchandise, personality and availability of the promoter, and location may all have an effect on a show. A well-advertised show should be tried at least twice before giving up on it. If you're a dealer who can't afford to do a flop market, then wait until a new market runs 3 or 4 times and becomes established before you do it. By then, the amount of buyers and sellers will become known. Many of the markets include one table in your space rent, and all markets charge for their extra tables when available. You can, however, use as many of your own tables on your space as you want with no additional cost. The 6 and 8 foot long heavy plywood ones with folding metal legs are best, but are pretty heavy and hard to load unless you have a large truck. Folding tables are probably your best bet. Buy good ones with metal tops, not fiberboard, and 4 legs that you can push into the ground. With a little care, your table should last you a long time. Also, bring a chair. It's going to be a long day. Some sort of shade is needed. Unless you're setting up under trees, you'll have to supply your own. Most dealers today use some sort of canopy tent or awning. There are several tent manufacturers that make tents especially for the flea market trade. They advertise in the trade papers, and some also display their tents at the larger markets. Many also supply parts so that you can design and build any size or shape tent that you need. You can usually find a dealer selling tents, tarps, clamps, showcases, and other needed equipment at many of the larger markets. It is important to remember, though, that if you do buy a tent, be sure to get a white one. Many buyers won't go into a dark-looking tent. Your merchandise will look much better if you have some kind of cover on your table. Single bed sheets are fine to start with, but use white or soft pastels, not patterned sheets. Your small items will not show up well on a patterned sheet. Later you can get more professional type table covers, and if you plan to do indoor shows, be sure you get fireproof covers. These are now required in most states. Also, get several clothespin type clips to help hold down the covers if it gets breezy. Don't forget plenty of bags and paper for wrapping, and a thermos of water generally comes in handy. 2 other items that you will need are a flashlight and an alarm clock, as some of your selling will be before dawn. Almost every imaginable vehicle can be used to work from at the flea market. Don't be overly concerned with having a special vehicle to do a show. Most dealers start with their cars. The most important point is to have a very reliable vehicle. If you become active as an outdoor dealer, you can expect to put 30 or 40,000 miles a year on your vehicle. Many of these miles will be in unknown areas and probably at night. Keep the vehicle in top running condition. If you're working from your car, you can carry a small tent for more comfortable sleeping on overnight markets. And you also could add a small trailer to allow you to carry more inventory when necessary. With the long food and restroom lines found at many crowded markets, motorhomes are becoming very popular with the dealers. The main disadvantage, besides the cost, is that you're unable to carry as much inventory in it as you could with the same size truck. Many markets now have an attached campground for your use. A few even have showers for their dealers. The type of vehicle that works best for you will depend on what type of merchandise you carry and how many comforts or conveniences you need. There is no ideal simple vehicle, but vans are the most popular dealer's vehicle used today. How much you can make each year being an antique flea market dealer depends on how many markets you do during the year and whether you're a full-time or part-time dealer. Like any business, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. Normally, the most you can expect to sell at any flea market is 50% of your inventory. To be safe, you should carry at least a $2,000 inventory, with a $4,000 to $5,000 inventory being ideal. A few antique dealers will carry a $25,000, $50,000, or even $100,000 inventory to a large market. You should try to keep your expenses down to around 10% of your total sales. If your inventory is not large enough to do this, your best bet is to team up with another dealer and share expenses. Always remember that how much you can sell depends on several other factors, such as how good a salesperson you are, how fairly your items are priced, and which markets you do. So take it all into account when doing a show. Setting the price on your merchandise is arrived at through several different methods. Most dealers feel that if they can double their money over the price paid for an item, they're doing all right. There are plenty of price guides available to help you price your items. Since the buyers also use these price guides, it's suggested that you set your sticker prices below book prices by 10 to 20%. This below book price, coupled with your discount, should prove to be the bargain that your customer is looking for. If you can't buy an item and resell it at an attractive price to your customers, at the same time coming close to doubling your money, then don't buy it. Find something else. Another way of pricing your items is to walk around the market before setting up and take notice of the prices other dealers have on similar items. Then mark your item at that price or a little lower. The disadvantage of this system is that you miss the buying frenzy that sometimes develops when the dealers are setting up. Often about 25% of your sales for that market can occur during setup. One very important point to remember is to always have your items priced. Oftentimes customers will not ask for the price on unstickered items. It is important to greet the prospective customer with a simple, "Good morning, can I help you?" or "I can do better on the price," particularly if a person has been handling an item for 20 or 30 seconds. This breaks the ice with the customer and points out who to ask if they have any questions. This is a simple way to increase your sales, as opposed to letting your customers make the first move. Have your merchandise out where the customers can handle it freely. Don't close it away in a showcase with a "Do Not Handle" sign on it. People like to handle an item and sometimes won't even ask the price if it is within a showcase. Small items can be pinned to a piece of cardboard, such as a 3x5 file card, or placed in plastic bags for display. Of course, small, valuable items such as diamond rings will have to be in a showcase. But any small items valued at $15 or less should be out where the customer can handle them. This will make the customer more at ease and more receptive to buying. You will always have a small problem with items being stolen. This is always annoying, but you can learn to live with it. Certain markets have a higher percentage of thieves in them. When you have to do one of these markets, you will have to lock all your small or fragile items in showcases. The markets you will have the most problems in are mixed markets selling new items or any market located near a large city. In your travels, you will occasionally have an item chipped or broken, but it's best to chalk this off to part of the cost of doing business. Most dealers find that they damage their own merchandise 50 to 1 over the amount a customer damages just moving from show to show. Most customers will expect to pay something if they break an item, but there is no law which makes it mandatory. You can carry insurance against the breakage, but this type of protection is very expensive. One way to reduce hard feelings is to have the customer pay you for what you have invested in the item, not the sticker price. There's no sense in getting too excited if a customer refuses to pay for a broken item. Remain friendly, keep the blood pressure in check, and make the best of the situation. It is very important to have your price tags marked clearly and in plain sight, so the customer knows the value of the item before she attempts to pick it up. Browsers generally won't pick up a highly priced item. Also, tape down loose pieces on an item, especially if the customer might not know that they are there. A small sticker with a note like "Top is loose" is also helpful. One important rule to remember is that people shop flea markets expecting a bargain, and it's up to you to supply it. Never tell a customer your price is firm and that you cannot give her a deal. A good rule of thumb would be to figure on giving around 10 to 20% discount off your sticker price. About 50% of the buyers will offer you a still lower amount, so leave yourself a little negotiating room when you give your initial discounted price. A typical transaction might go like this.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Can I help you?
What's your best deal on this?
I can let it go for $50.
I can offer you 40.
No, I'm sorry. I can't let it get that low.
Well, let's split the difference. Make it 45 and you have yourself a sale.
All right. Thank you.
You will find that if your item is priced fairly to begin with, most buyers will accept the first discounted price. A few will stick to their offer and will not budge. Your decision whether to take the offer or not should depend almost entirely on how long you've had the item. If you've had the item with its current price for at least 2 markets, then take the offer. Your primary goal at each market should be to sell every item and go home empty. Another way to increase your sales is to tell the prospective buyer the known history of a particular item. There are many things you can tell people about an item, even if you don't know the actual history of it. Whenever possible, ask the seller of each item where he obtained the item and any history about it. Before long, you'll find that your knowledge has increased to the point that you can tell a customer the possible age, odd names, uses, general location where found, and other interesting facts on almost any item. A few antique dealers are great storytellers, and it's no coincidence that they always have good selling shows. Often they even got more money for a particular item than the other dealers in the market. People always seem willing to pay a premium for an item with an interesting story attached. A large portion of the items sold at a flea market are purchased to be used as decorative items, setting on shelves or hung on walls. If you give customers the history, or at least some interesting facts about an item, they will be more likely to buy it. Then they can tell their friends all about it when it's on display in their homes. As you become more experienced, you will begin noticing certain types or designs of items sell better in particular areas. They may be things connected to the area, like items on the local sports team, or they may simply be unique to that area. Letting the customers know this will help increase your sales. Another way to increase your sales, sometimes by as much as 50%, is to move to a different market each week. Some dealers set up at the same market week after week, with mostly the same merchandise. With a little extra effort, they could increase their sales greatly by doing another market the next week, 50 or 100 miles away. It is far easier to find new customers for your merchandise than it is to find new merchandise for your regular customers. As you travel widely, you will find that different areas value similar items differently. Certain items sell well in one area and poorly in the next. One area may prefer oak furniture, another mahogany or walnut. You can increase your profits by not only bringing these more desirable items into the area, but also by buying the unwanted items in the new area and bringing them back to your own. You will learn which are the hot or slow items in each area over a period of time, maybe even 2 or 3 years. Talking to other traveling dealers will definitely help you get started. Large antique flea markets can have 1,500 or more dealers set up in a flat field. Most customers will walk a large field only once. As they walk down a row with dealers on both sides of the aisle, they will normally cover both sides at once, glancing right and left until something catches their eye and draws them to that booth. It's only common sense that the more people you can attract into your booth, the better the chances you have of making a sale. Leaving a wide aisle into your booth helps draw people in. Another way is to display a large, ornate, and unusual or outrageous item which people will want to get a closer look at. Since you really don't want to sell this attractor item, this is one time that you can get away with a sky-high price and not hurt your other sales. Most people won't know where to put it anyway, so usually the only buyers really interested in it will be other dealers who want to use it the same as you are. Eventually, someone will come along who can't live without this item and will pay your outrageous price. But what the heck? You can always find something else. Everyone likes to feel that they are the first one to have a chance to buy an item that you just picked up. One of the biggest giveaways that indicates that you've had an item for some time is a faded or dirty price tag. If a buyer is undecided about buying an item, the dirty price tag will turn her off, making her think that a lot of other buyers have already passed on it. Keeping bright and new-looking price tags on your merchandise is a small expense compared to the increase in sales that it generates. This also gives you a chance, every 2 or 3 markets, to lower the price a little on an item that you've had for a while. That way you'll have a better chance of selling them before the new tags need changing again. Another selling technique is to move your items around to different locations in your booth a couple of times a day. Also, keep similar items grouped together in your booth. This will ensure that a fast-moving buyer will see all the items that she is interested in and not miss one because it was in a different location. If you are an active buyer, you can expect about 1 to 5% of your buys to be losers, particularly if you buy mostly at auctions. If you can accept this fact, then you will be much better off than the dealer who never sells at a loss. Some dealers actually brag about how it took them several years to turn a profit on an item, when in fact the money that they've had tied up in it has lost many times that amount. Remember though, certain items are valued differently in certain areas. An item is worth only as much as a customer is willing to pay for it at that particular time and place. You may have sold the same item for a higher price someplace else, but if you want to sell it at this market, you have to accept the price the buyers in this particular area are willing to pay for it, here and now. One of the most exciting experiences you will ever have as an antique dealer is to be in the buyer's rush at a major market. Hundreds, even thousands of buyers rush through the gate when a large market first opens. In some markets, they wait on the field for you to pull in. Your vehicle will be literally mobbed with several buyers asking you questions all at once, like, how much is that item? And do you have any of these? The only way to handle and take advantage of this rush is to plan ahead for it. Load your best and most desirable items last, so they can come out first. Also, the rush is no time to fool with small items, such as jewelry or watches, unless, of course, you specialize in these. It's best to tell interested buyers of these types of items to stop back in about a half hour after the rush is calmed, and you can keep a better eye on them. After most of the dealers are set up, the buyers thin out and the buying frenzy ends. You will find that you can do about 1/4 of your day's sales in this first hour, so be ready. It's not necessary to cut your prices much during the rush. Usually, if one buyer is interested in an item, 2 or 3 others will also be interested in it. Most experienced buyers also realize this and will pay a little more than normal, rather than take the chance of losing the item. After 2 or 3 hours, you can start giving larger discounts and accepting offers. Occasionally, you will obtain an item that is extra nice or unusual, but you're not sure if the customers will like it as much as you do, or even what price to ask for it if they do. This is one of the few times when not pricing an item may help you. It allows you to quote an abnormally high price and measure the shopper's reaction to it. It also allows you to view their interest in the item before and after they ask the price. If the item doesn't sell after a few customers have asked on it, then you can drop the price for the next couple of inquiries. Eventually, you will reach the right price. As you get to know and trust some buyers looking for a particular type of item, another method is to hold the item to give them first chance at it. In appreciation, you should expect the buyer to tell you what she's willing to pay for the item. A good buyer is always willing to make you a fair offer. Many dealers rely heavily on this method, even if they know the item's value without being told. When you set up as an antique dealer at a show, you are a salesman, plain and simple. You must sell your merchandise. Don't sit back and wait for your items to sell themselves. Some of the best methods we have already covered, such as greeting the buyer and offering a lower price. There are other methods that also work well. One way is to show the customers a similar item that she might not have seen to the one that she is interested in buying. However, try to make the sale and collect the money on the original item first, to prevent the customer from choosing between the two. Also, tell the prospective buyer that you just picked up the particular item this week, and she's the first one to examine it. This, of course, only works early in the day, but all buyers like to feel that they're the first one to find an item. If you're trying to close a deal, offer to deliver a large item. Most retail buyers have no easy means of getting large purchases home. Try showing a picture of an identical item from a price guide or an auction report. This method only works if your price is considerably below the printed price. Last, try asking the interested customer, who seems to be teetering on the brink of whether or not to buy something, how much she's willing to pay for that certain item. It's amazing sometimes that you're only $1 or $2 apart. A customer that's not familiar with bargaining techniques does not know how to make you an offer unless you ask for it. It is not uncommon to find some antique dealers selling a few new items mixed in with the old at antique flea markets. Many reproductions fit in nicely with true antiques. Many of the retail customers will buy an item they like, even if it is new, provided it is properly represented. They just want to be assured that they are getting the lowest possible price. One of the best ways to sell reproductions is to display a large amount of one particular item in your booth. Put out 10 or even 100 examples of the items to attract interest in it. Having a large display of one new item or a group of items will indicate to all the buyers that you are the main source for it, and that your price is sure to be the lowest, even if it's not. Identify the item as new, but then point out how much the original antique would cost. As long as you're honest with them, many buyers will want the item as an example in their collection. But be careful. Some larger shows do not allow reproductions to be sold on the field. Check with the promoter first. A large portion of your sales will be paid with checks. Although some dealers operate on a no checks policy, it is not advisable because many sales could be lost. The number of bad checks that you will probably receive is small in proportion to the sales gained. Some checks will bounce initially just because you got to the bank before the customer had time to get her deposit in. All checks can be submitted only twice, so after it bounces the first time, be sure that it will clear before submitting it again, or you'll end up with a useless piece of paper. When you get a bounced check from your bank, call the customer's bank, explaining to them that you are a merchant with a bounced check from one of their depositors. Ask them if it will now clear if you redeposit it. If they say yes, then if possible, go to an office of that bank and cash the check immediately. This will prevent the 2 to 8 days that it takes for your bank to send the check back to their bank. If the bank informs you there are not enough funds for you to redeposit the check, then you'll have to call the customer to find out what the problem is. Always make sure that you get a phone number when taking a check, and look for proper ID. There is a check guarantee insurance available, but it is not practical for an outdoor dealer. This is because you have to call in for clearance on each check before they will guarantee it. Accepting charge cards is also not practical and seldom found at outdoor markets for the same reason. But this policy will slowly change as more people begin to use cellular phones. Set aside 5 or 10 of your best items each week, starting several weeks before you do a large show. Good, fresh, high-interest items sell better than average items at a large show. Items that you have been unable to sell after 2 or 3 markets can be packed away and held for a large show. Pulling these slow sellers out of your inventory makes it easier to set up at one-day shows, plus gives you a backup inventory for your next large show. Don't put these items out first. Use them, as the name implies, as backup merchandise. As your tables begin to empty during the selling, use your backup items with fresh price stickers as fillers to keep your tables full. The longer the market, the better this method works. Selling items for another dealer who owns a shop and does not do markets is a quick and easy way to increase your inventory. This method works especially well if you are operating on limited capital. First, get to know the dealer fairly well. Next, pick out 1 or 2 good non-fragile items and find out what the dealer is willing to take for them. Then, tell him you're doing a large show this weekend, and would he mind if you tried selling these items for him at your upcoming show. Tell him that you will return his items in the same condition you found them in, or his money, immediately after the show. If you have built up this dealer's trust, he will agree to these terms. This has become an accepted method of doing business in the antiques trade. You, in turn, sell the items for more than the dealer wants and keep the difference. As the dealer's trust in you grows, you will find that you can get large amounts of merchandise on consignment before a big show. Never break that trust. Pay the dealer promptly for sold items and always make restitution for any item that gets damaged or stolen. If you're careful what type of items you take on consignment, you can increase your sales accordingly while keeping the risk at a minimum. Many auction houses and shops accept credit cards. Buying with a credit card is a fast way to add many items to your inventory just before doing a large show. In 30 days, when your bill comes due, you can pay it off with little or no interest. Meanwhile, you have had all that time to sell the items. This is not a good method for a novice dealer. New dealers make many buying mistakes, particularly when buying at an auction. This method should only be used when you know your antiques well enough to be 99% certain that the items you pick will sell at the market you're planning to do. Reading the articles in antique trade papers is the easiest way to learn what's hottest right now. Auction houses will also advertise specialized auctions of one type of item, such as duck decoys or tin toys, which is a good indication of many people wanting the same type of item. Any very old, unusual, or special item that you pick up and which would fit into any one of these special auctions could be worth big bucks. So find out all you can about it before pricing it. Even common items, 20 to 30 years old, that fit into these categories can be fairly valuable. Another way is to check the wanted ads the collectors put in the paper. The more ads for a particular item usually means the more valuable it is. In this video, you have learned some of the tricks of the antique business trade. Whether you are in it strictly as a hobby or as serious as a business, to be a smart antique dealer, one has to be both a good buyer and seller. Knowing both sides of the coin, you can maximize both your profits and your enjoyment in this exciting field. And hopefully, at the end of your antique hunting day, you will be able to say, "What a deal!"